Have you seen too many collabs? Because at the moment there's a lot going on.
2 or 3 nights a week, there's a collaboration happening now. It's great to see, but I would say now there's possibly too much of it.
This time around, we are celebrating all things 2024. I have 2 people who have their pulse on every single button when it comes to all things gastronomy. Courtney Brandt, Liam Collins. I want to understand your future predictions, especially when it comes to Emirati cuisine.
Emirati, I think cuisine, we only want to see more, but I want to see. Hey, it's Courtney Brandt, food writer and content creator.
Hey guys, it's Liam Collins, food writer. If you like the podcast, make sure to follow, share, and subscribe.
Bon appetit.
Saluti!
Welcome back to the Chef JKP Podcast. And this time around, we are celebrating all things 2024 with festive period. So many things have happened. However, I do need some guidance on these incredible culinary adventures. I have 2 people who have very much fingers in pies, if you like, figuratively speaking, and in different areas. And also, they have their pulse on every single button when it comes to all things gastronomy. So, first off, we have the incredible and glamorous Courtney Brandt. How are you?
I am very good. 2024, what a year.
Yeah.
What a year.
It's been full on.
Lots to talk about.
At the same time, I have the gentleman and scholar, Liam Collins.
It's cold in here, it's Christmas Day, isn't it? Oh, love it, love it.
So, it wouldn't be a Christmas special without gifts. So, I had to. And being a chef, I was literally thinking about wrapping it in cling film and foil. Mm-hmm. But these are for you.
Gift me.
Nice.
I love a thermal bottle.
But you need to open it, gang.
Okay.
You need to open it. You need to open it. I'm sorry.
Right.
No, you don't have to.
What is on here?
Oh, very
cool.
nice. Yes.
So,
Well done, you.
hot and cold.
Okay.
Oh.
They actually work properly.
Well done.
No more bottles.
We did scientific testing.
I like the drawing. Well
I do
done.
too.
Yeah. Yes. So it's a brain, obviously, with and it's got lots of little memories because food is memories, right?
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Please.
Love it.
I love
I
it.
know
More
that
of that.
You probably have 3,000 at home, but you know.
But you can still have a favourite.
Yes.
You can still have a favourite.
Your Madeline moment.
Yeah.
So, Courtney, with you first.
Yes.
Can you tell me what's been going on? Any news? Any updates?
2024, like I said, my best year I went on a lot of press trips this year. I've met some just fantastic chefs. I've had some of the best meals of my life. We'll get into that. And I'm also very proud to have joined the Trescent Studio team. So working under the Passion F&B group.
Congratulations.
And thank you. So I'm helping just with the one restaurant and really getting to see behind the scenes in a way that I haven't before. So what goes into a menu and what also NDAs signed and all of that.
Right.
But I'm so proud to work there.
That's incredible. And also the mind of Himanshu. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
He's an incredible talent.
Yeah.
Yes.
and Liam, for yourself?
So year 1 of being a dad, so that's been quite the adjustment.
That's also, yeah.
I think so.
Christmas time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this has been a little bit of a less is more year for me. I've got a long-term project that I've been cooking over most of the year that I can't talk about yet, but I will loop back to this when I can, in order to let everybody know. And also quite a few press trips this year as well too. So I've been focusing, I think, a bit more on the international side, and yeah, that's been more of my development this year.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, you're absolutely right. Throughout the year, both of you have been just like here, there, everywhere, and it's like non-stop. So on top of having a child, moving house, so it's just been like boom.
Yes.
But if we get into the nitty-gritty, first of all, let's talk about sort of major events, openings, maybe some closings, people leaving. You know, what are your thoughts, Courtney? I'll start with you.
I mean, we've seen, obviously, I think it's the recency effect. So Bjorn Fransen obviously coming up. I'm going this week. Liam has been. That's been on the calendar for a very long time. Obviously, I operate and love the fine dining space. But I want to see, and this is, I'm jumping way to the end, trends to see that I love. We have the Orfali brothers. They're expanding out. We've seen Bait Miriam. She's expanding out. And I love seeing this, like, we started local and now we're growing. And it has been amazing to see. So I think I'm equally excited that, yes, we continue to bring in celebrity chefs. Sorry, not celebrity, well-decorated, fine dining chefs that, you know, have their caliber. And we also see our own local talent continuing to grow and in the best possible way, and very natural development to see a restaurant go, okay, we've got that core balance and we've got that core team. Now, how does it look to go from there? To me, it speaks of maturation in a market.
So if I ask you then, you know, Franson was obviously a very large opening, but for you, Courtney, what's been sort of the opening of the year so far?
I'm trying to think, because I'm a person who continues to go to my favorite restaurants. I'm going to defer. Actually, I'm going to flip to Liam. I want to see what his answer is going to be, and then I'm going to come back and see if he has a good answer.
So I think in the fine dining space, I think it is Franchen. I think that is the one that everyone. So at the tail end of the year, that's when everyone's been looking forward to. And for people who maybe aren't so familiar with Dubai, what tends to happen is Q1, typically Q2, you get a lot of big name openings. Summer goes quiet because people aren't here, right? So it tends to be very, very quiet on the PR and launch side, unless you have a restaurant that does a soft launch during the summer because they just kind of want to get their feet wet and they want to get into their stride. And then Q4, it tends to be very, very busy again. And so Franchen was that Q4 launch. I think in the beginning of the year, it was the link. I mean, kind of like lest we forget that. That's what happened, right?
That was monstrous.
There's so much that happened in 2024. I almost thought it was another year. Yeah.
So you and I, this time last year, were talking about what's going to happen next year, which is this year. And we were talking about the revenge of the international chef. And that was, the link was opening, right? So you had the Beast coming to town, right? You had, you know, Sofiane Pic, Paco, all these guys coming to town. Some of those have closed since as well, which is notable as well too. And so I think on the big scale, that's been the thing that stood out to me. On the smaller scale, Al Naka in Neighborhood Food Hall, that's probably one of my favorite openings this year. And I really love what he's doing with his food. It's about unique voices, it's small scale, and I love seeing friends going to his restaurant and ordering his food, and more of us should be doing it.
And I love the fact that also he's small, but he was also on the cover of the Caterer recently and talking about his story, and I think it's just phenomenal. And a super humble guy. Yeah. But by all accounts, I haven't been, but by all accounts, incredibly delicious food.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So
we're spoiled, I feel like, this year, maybe even more than other years, because when you have these big properties come online, whether it's the one and only Zabil, which I think opened in 2023, but everything kind of came online.
Yes.
And then, you know, the Kerzner/Atlantis team are just continuously finding someone new. We know Corbone, I think, is coming in downstairs Q1. I think we all hoped that maybe Gerbu was going to be 2024, but I think it is going to be 2025. So if I'm looking forward to anything, I've been saying it. I know another recent development that Tala in Bahrain is closing down. We've needed that Emirati voice where they had, where Bahrain was so lucky to have her voice as a true Khaliji experience. I just cannot wait that we can hopefully finally have that one Emirati restaurant that we'll just stand behind and send people to.
100%.
Agreed.
I mean, there's so much going on in that space.
Yes.
Yep.
And so much attention to detail. Like you will see Chef Tahar or Panchali, and they'll show you like a plate, and then they'll show you like that's just absolute attention to detail. Is as much as I'm excited about the food, they did it the right way. That's what it feels like, that somebody didn't rush this, that they said, let's do this, let's do it right.
Yep.
Well, in that case then, what about then if we're talking about trends and fusion and Middle Eastern, have you seen too many collabs? Because at the moment there's a lot going on.
Yes.
You know, from the sourcing perspective, if you're talking about Gerbu, is it all local? Is it international? What have you seen?
I mean, when I think about collaborations in Dubai, it's normally about top chefs, right? So you've got, you know, your Danny Garcias, you've got your Gregoires, Orfali was in there as well. It seems like 2 or 3 nights a week there's a collaboration happening. Now, it's great to see, because I think it's lovely to see chefs working with each other, and it seems chefs that have this reputation for sort of being egotistical and all these sorts of things. But when you see collaborations happen, it makes me think that no, actually, that they are more sort of supportive of each other and wanting to work together. It's great for their teams as well too, because they learn things from each other. another and all that sort of stuff. So it's also a great education point. It's great for customers because maybe you love one restaurant, you've been interested in another. So it's just a way of dipping your toe into that restaurant. But I would say now that there's possibly too much of it in that sense.
That's what I was going to ask you, because in both of the spaces that you work in that sort of vast media landscape, you see a lot, you go to a lot, and is it too much?
It is,
me,
and
yes.
and this is not to say, because I understand the hard work that goes on behind it. I would rather see 4 elite collabs in a restaurant in a year, 1 per quarter, rather than 1 per month. I think that saturation of the market, because we have so much talent, again, going back to that. The other thing that I will forever say, I want to see our talent go out. We've seen Reef go to Copenhagen. Gregoire has gone to India. There are other collabs that are happening, but I really think it's important because we are there as a market. And why does everybody have to come in? Why don't we go out?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Reef is in Japan now.
Yep.
I saw something on Facebook. I think he's in Tokyo now, which
He's
for the
crushing
type of food that he does, it's it's absolutely incredible. I think we're seeing a little bit of moving out. So not necessarily Emirati talent, but so obviously I think the last time we were talking about this last year, we had Neha, and she's gone to Harrods, right? You've got openings of Il Boro and Gaia happening in London, right? But I think more interestingly, regionally, you've got people like Atelier House Hospitality who have gone into Saudi, right, with Mahala and things like that. They now have a partnership happening with yacht clubs and this sort of stuff. So these, and Trezen Studio and the F&B group they have openings in India. So there is a bit of emigration in that sense of Dubai as a crucible for talent. So it's not just bringing in big name chefs. We are the big name chefs now.
We are, but even local talent, Pickle, big fan.
Yeah.
They've moved into Qatar. I believe they're in Bahrain either 2023 or 2024. Izu has gone into Qatar as well. So looking at Dubai as a jumping off point, and then kind of, just going out, you love to see it.
The only thing for me is that, as a chef and doing those collaborations, I don't want to see what one chef did. This is his plate and this is her plate. It should be a collaboration on the plate.
Do you know who's crushing that? Takahisa.
Yeah. Oh my
Takahisa
God.
had a ton,
Takahisa,
but I was going to say
legends.
the little asterisk is I always want to go to a Takahisa collaboration. They can't do enough for
They're
me.
amazing,
but,
though.
Each one is very unique. It's a very unique voice, and I think to speak of Panchali and Atelier, the Inja Takahisa, you go, okay, Japanese, like pure Japanese and Indian fusion. How is this going to work? And it worked brilliantly. And you really did see that collab, and I see that to me it speaks to professionals speaking at the highest level. It's not just I'm going to roll out my signature dishes. We'll get the signature dishes, and that's nice, but then as a customer experience at the end, I really do feel like, wow, that was something special.
It was really special.
Yeah.
And I'm also at Takahisa themselves, I think, is just such a wonderful restaurant.
Yeah.
And
big things coming.
Yes.
We've got the Omakase room. I have had a little tour. So I just think it will be another way to offer something different, to have a space that nobody else has. Yeah,
I think on collabs, for me, there are just too many of them happening, and some restaurants are doing them more than once a month, which just seems rather odd to me in that sense. But to your point about where they come in and they create something new. So one thing that was really interesting with Takahisa was I think they had Lassim come in, and the new chef came in and cooked their menu, but cooked their menu through his eyes. So actually the personality of the chef piece that you hear about in Michelin came through. So this is their sort of shabu shabu that they have on their, let's say, on their normal omakase menu. But instead this is shabu shabu through this chef's eyes. So, if we had one menu and 3 of us cooked it, how would it look?
Right.
That's
Which is
that I
interesting,
really
right?
like.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And to go back in time, I'm kind of forgetting February where I hosted at Gulf Food. It was an amazing experience, and they had some we're talking. I was once on stage with literally, I don't know, 15 stars or something. I was like, what's happening?
So when I saw the lineup, I was like, oh my God, Courtney, good luck.
How are you going to do it?
There was some
Blank out.
massive personalities.
Yes, and they were
there.
all so professional, and to hear each of them speak. But on the back of that I feel like those collabs are super, like Gulf Food is its own week, and we're coming up on the 30th anniversary this year in 2025. And that's like maximizing space, much like Best Chefs. So Best Chefs is also just in the rear view, and some really good collabs came out of that. It was a little lastminute.com, not gonna lie, but I was focused. This is where I had to be transparent and say I worked with Trusted Studios, so we had so many chefs come through, and also it's a twofold where we get the collab, but we also get a place where those chefs are coming to our restaurants, and you saw them in Orfali, and you saw
Right.
them at Oceano.
Which is
And
exciting.
I was
Which is nice.
so proud, proud moment. Standing ovations for all the services during Best Chef.
Wow.
And of course. And to me, that just speaks to the talent we have, and that talent recognizes talent.
So then when we go into the awards, so I've got a cheeky segment here for the awards. So first of all,
I've heard of them, yes.
First of all, we're going to go into Michelin.
Yep.
So, we had Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and the exciting part is also we have Qatar coming up.
Yes.
So let's start off with Dubai. During the Dubai Awards, what were your thoughts, please?
I think it's going in the right direction. So if we look at 2023, the Bib Gourmands were separated, and we all felt that was the wrong choice, because we are a different community, and I want to see Stasha in the same room as everyone else.
100%.
I do think the location was great. I still always want to see the Michelin team come to the awards, and I will continue to say that. I do think it's important, and I think Dubai Tourism invests a lot, and I think that that's a huge part of it. We don't get to have these things for free. Somebody is making that investment and believes in the gastronomy of the city. Same with Abu Dhabi Culinary. And it just felt, I don't know, I felt we could have had a little more representation. I think we are that city.
Don't shun the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But so
That's what I would say.
If we look at, I'll do positives. It was amazing to see row 145.
Yeah, for me that was the highlight.
It was, and I've not known Jason as long as you have, but that reminded me of how important and special that this is. Seeing Orfali move up to 1 out of Bib, and then I'm going to bring up Takahisa again. Really think they deserve a star, and I was very upset. Yeah. I
agree.
told the team so, because I just think they're delivering at the same level everybody else is, if not higher.
I think it's exceptional service.
Agreed.
The one thing I always bang on about here is, like, culinary-wise, I think we're great, but service needs to be, pushed further.
Agreed.
And Takahisa, they do a phenomenal job when it comes to service.
Yes.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Michelin?
So I agree with everything Courtney said. Courtney and Pallavi and I actually wrote a piece about Michelin Guide earlier
Which was
this year.
amazing, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with everything that Courtney said. I think looking in the details, and perhaps, for the sake of podcasting, there were some bits in there where I think there were numbers being played with, right? So there are about, I think, 4 restaurants that dipped out of the Bib, some of them because they closed, some of them because I think the price point no longer justifies the Bib, and so they sort of moved to the selected piece in that sense. There were some restaurants where, for example, I'm a big fan of Reef and big fan of Reef Kushiyaki, and I always have been. But I don't think diners will look at Dar Wassel and will look at Dubai Hills as 2 separate restaurants, and they're both listed, right? So from a numbers perspective, it feels like the guide was maneuvering in a way in order to keep the numbers up,
right,
if I can put it that way, so that it doesn't look like the city slipping down. And I thought that was a little bit odd. And I think, as usual, there's always the conversation about, does that place justify having a star?
Right.
Is that sort of, how do these places sit next to each other?
Well done for you calling Duo to get a bib.
Yeah.
Which you did.
They're a bib,
But
for sure.
To go there is just, I have sent so many people, and it shouldn't feel like a hidden gem, because that could throw us around too much, but they're now open in Dubai Harbor. And you go in, and I think some people, it's not like a chip on your shoulder, but people just, for whatever reason, expectations are not where they should be.
Right.
And then you get blown away.
Right.
And it's just humble, simple, straightforward menu. Come in, enjoy any time of day.
Tasty food.
Done.
Super tasty food.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is that a lot of people, for some reason in this region, don't also seem to get that the bibs and the stars can also get taken away. And that's one thing that we have to reiterate.
Yes.
Is that they can, and they have been taken away.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where you just, keep it forever. No. It's important for people to understand.
Yeah.
You're going to get judged continuously by the guide and the powers that be. Make sure that the standards stay where they are, or keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Right. So then, when it comes to Abu Dhabi, there was also
Congratulations,
James.
Bruce to James. Yes.
I'm going to try not to go red. It was. To be honest, it's still very much like a dream world, in all honesty. But first, before we get to that, we have to say, again, compared to what Abu Dhabi Culinary did last year, compared to what they did now, it was incredibly grand what they did.
Versus sitting outside in a
right.
It was
park. It was basically in in Mandarin Oriental,
Yes.
Emirates Palace,
Yeah.
in this auditorium, which was really beautiful. And you had a huge amount of, a lot more people there. It was a proper black tie event. It was really, really nice. And you saw far more talent come through this year. And it was just really incredible to see that. We still had 4 stars, which was great to see. But I believe and I also said it this year and last year on the show, there's more opportunity for people to come in and really push hard.
Yes. It's a market that definitely has that capacity. And I will say for the event, I was sad to see that Craft by Side Hustle, to me, they're a perfect bib for Abu Dhabi.
Me too.
Chef Troy is doing as he always has done, which is just unique food. He's doing it in his own voice. You've got that kind of Southern heritage from Chad, who's one of the investors. And I was really shocked not to either see them in the guide or, to me, it's a perfect, cool bib. It's the first brewery in the region. I won't just say even Abu Dhabi. And I did want to see them there.
No, I agree with you. And I think it is going to be on everybody's lips because what he's doing is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
Food-wise, just...
And it's one of the few places I think we lack spaces where all three a 3-generation family can go in and enjoy themselves.
Yes.
To set up in a place that children, parents, grandparents can all go, all have a good time, all walk away with something like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I want more of those spaces. Even though I might love my fine dining, to me it's like, again, Pitfire in Dubai Hills. We brought our collective parents there. They met for the first time with baby Rufus. And it was fun for everybody. And how do we get more of these spaces?
Right.
Yeah.
So actually, this is my podcast now. I will ask you questions. So the first one being, what do you think has to, from a chef's perspective, what has to change or adjust in Abu Dhabi in order for Abu Dhabi to, say, have the same number of entrants or the tiering of entrants that we have in Dubai?
So, thank you very much for joining the podcast. It's a
Welcome.
pleasure to be here.
The journalist LFC.
The difference between Dubai and Abu Dhabi is that in Abu Dhabi you have far more Emirati locals, and they are proper hardcore foodies.
Right.
So when they come in and they're loyal, they're super loyal to the cause.
Right.
Number one, I think it will take a little bit more sort of education in the way that, if you like a specific place, to write into the guide, so on and so forth. I think that needs to be sort of more educated with the locals for them to understand. So actually we can actually write to the Michelin, so on, and you can do that on the app now. Okay. So on the Michelin app, if you like it, you can say, I really like this place, I recommend it, and gets 1, 2, 3, which is really cool. But I think, Liam, you're going to see definitely over the next year or two far more chefs from Dubai and other areas of the region actually come in. It's become a super food hub. So where we are in RYBA, for example, my neighbor is Marmalata, Raj, and he's doing
legend,
some amazing food. And that area, that whole area, that souk, is a food gastronomic hub in a way. You've got one, I believe, Jordanian or Syrian guy who studied gelato for 4 years, and he's there now. And you've got flavors, which is more like a smokehouse. But then if I look out in the realms of what's going on in different pockets of Abu Dhabi, there is a lot going on. It's just, I think, people are a bit afraid to sort of go to Abu Dhabi from Dubai or wherever it is, but it's amazing. And also from a chef's perspective, you have got everything. You've got absolutely everything. And we're a dry concept. RYBA is a dry concept, so we have no alcohol, and we purely focus on the ingredients and the storytelling about Emirati heritage, so on and so forth. So there is a lot going on, and I really believe you're going to see far more. And also, the government are investing a huge amount of money, not to get how can I put it? Not to get these personality chefs, as I like to call it, but more homegrown.
Got it.
Yeah.
So raising the bar.
Absolutely.
Internally.
And you have what? Guggenheim, the natural history, like the the residences, that whole part of Saadiyat that's coming, and you would just think it's going to go hand in hand, that something will be coming into some of these beautiful spaces.
Right. And if you look at, so for example, the world famous Yas Island or Fight Island, whatever you want to call it, that's sort of become really touristy that area,
Yeah.
right? Because of UFC and all of this kind of stuff that's happened. But if you keep driving along, and on both sides along this highway, the building and the construction that's happening, because they're really trying to, showcase. Abu Dhabi is more of a cultural area with lots of natural beauty, so on and so forth. So you're really going to see that a lot more.
Yeah, you've got. I was at Strawfire on Thursday night, so that's even in Emirates Palace. You've got a little knockout going on between Hakkasan, Strawfire, and Sushi Samba. So even diners within one property can see a lot of opportunity.
There's a lot of monopoly there also, because they have so much going on. Yeah. But it's a beautiful location. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But yeah, it's full on.
Okay, so I'm excited.
How did you feel going on? Look, you've always been a big fan of Michelin. Like, I'm a fan of the podcast. You always talk about how much Michelin's meant to you over the years. How did it feel going on stage?
Yeah, I mean, overwhelming. In all honesty, so just to put it into context, what people don't know is that. So I work for Scene Holdings, and Scene Holdings is a conglomerate, a company, Emirati owned, which is fantastic. And they have different restaurants. We do lots of outside catering, all that kind of stuff. I'm the group executive chef. So from a perspective, I oversee what's going on, strategize just to make sure that everything is all good. But then RYBA came into play. So I've been involved with that project for the past 18 months, from the design of the kitchen, the design of the menu, all of those sort of facets. And when considering the location, it was the only when we're right on the corner, beautiful sort of open kitchen space, and it's really gorgeous. When you walk in, there's a story to be told. So, for example, if people don't know or are aware, RYBA is the Russian word or the Balkan word for fish.
Ah, okay.
And the owners and Chef Faisal and myself wanted to tell a story about how incredible fish is, and we're on the port, so we want to do it that way. The lights are basically old Emirati fishermen's nets.
Oh, okay.
So when you walk in, you've got the olive trees because it's a little nod to Mediterranean. But on the ceiling, you've got this sort of mirrored wall, which represents the sea. So we have a story about that. And then, so Faisal is the one that tells me everything to do with the heritage of Emirati, and these are the flavors that we do. These are the dishes. My job is to translate all of that onto the plate and onto the operations. So we very much work together, but the chef side of things, I'm into the details of things. But throughout working this past 18 months, at no point did we think we would be in the guide, genuinely. Like no joke. We thought we would be mentioned, but at no point did we think we would get a bib. And at no point did we think we would get opening of the year. So it was super emotional.
Yeah, of course.
Super emotional. And you saw that also when Faisal was saying, he almost broke down because he wanted to showcase Emirati food to the world. Going back to, saying, and I've always believed it, that from this region we can have modern food that speaks 100%. Volumes. So when you come in, the service is beautifully casual, but our job is to punch you in the face with flavors.
Yeah, good.
You know what I mean? So it's and we're now, the business has tripled.
Okay.
And the team are like, chef, it's a bit busy. I'm like, yeah.
It's the Michelin effect. Yes, yeah.
So we've been very fortunate in that respect. And I'm really happy that we've managed to also have an Emirati restaurant in the guide because it's global, So, but it was still very much like, I cannot believe it, because I've been a fan since,
Congratulations.
But it's been phenomenal, really. And we want to keep singing the praises. And people say, oh, do you want to have one in Dubai here? And I think, you know what, we just want to focus on what we have. We really want to focus on what we have and keep doing maybe smaller collaborations with local talents rather than sort of more international talents, if you like.
But finding a space, like I can picture where you are. I used to live in Abu Dhabi.
Right.
And so, real estate is a little bit harder to come by in Dubai, and it's sometimes as much about, obviously it's about the food, but then finding a very special or unique location that people go to, and that's something that plays into it. And here it's, we know people that are going to open next year, and how do you identify a space that hasn't already been done? That isn't. It's a very saturated market, but coming in with Emirati cuisine, to me, we don't have enough of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that when you sort of drive in, sort of 3-4 minutes beforehand, the only things you can see left and right are warehouses. So you think you're in some sort of weird industrial estate, and then you go right to the very end.
Destination restaurant.
Right, and then it just opens up, and then there's all these weird and wonderful things happening, and there's like no joke, like kids flying different kites and stuff like that. So it's
Cool.
it's really cool. And talking of Raj Mamalata, what he's doing with oh my god,
His 5 p.m. opening. This is where I can't, because I'll always come to Abu Dhabi for dinner.
So on the weekends, he's now opening at 4
lunch,
and there's still a huge
queue.
My guy.
Huge queues, but he's doing a few things as well, so that's going to be interesting.
I've tried to go to that restaurant. I've only been to Abu Dhabi, I think maybe 3 times or something in the last year, and every time I've gone, I've tried to go there, and I've looked on Google Maps and it's closed. I'm like, bro, you're leaving money on the table.
And he knows that. He knows. He's aware. Everybody gets 2 days off.
Good.
Everyone
It
gets
should
2 days
be
off,
that way.
and
Brilliant.
you come in and
Can we do a 1 p.m. start one day?
And the thing is, like, he's so sometimes he sells out. He's opening at 4 or 5, and he's sold out by 7.
Wow.
And he brilliant. So he's
that's
just
a problem restaurateurs have.
And it reminds me very much of like when El Bulli was. There was only 600,000 reservations, but there were 2 million people trying to get into the restaurant. It sort of reminds me of that scenario a little bit.
Yeah.
But then and then look, and then the exciting part also is the Qatar Michelin guide is around the corner.
Yeah.
Yes. That's and I think after that the question is, where does it go? I think my presumption is that it's Saudi, right? And this is all curving towards Saudi in that sense, and I'm sure there are conversations being had. But yes, Qatar is the next
on
one.
the list.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a sort of mutual friend, Rachel Morris,
who you finally traveled with.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think she's doing a great job of
she is.
sort of putting Doha and Qatar out there and writing, because also the really interesting part is that everybody says, oh, well, let's go on a staycation in the Emirates, which is great, but also if you just jump on a plane, which is an hour, Qatar, there's so much happening.
We were on a trip last year to Raffles. Oh my goodness! If you want to just take care of yourself, like. I mean, hey, we got levels here, but this place was, it was next level. Right. Yeah. And they also have beautiful things. But a shout out to Rachel Morris because she is doing a weekly newsletter. She's really tapped in. She does high end, low end, middle, anywhere in between. I really do respect all the work she's doing.
100%.
I don't think I'm going to be able to go to the awards, but I will be tuned into her to see. And she, I think, already has her own kind of like, thoughts on the process.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think it's just really interesting what's going to happen. Are we going to have potentially concepts from Dubai, UAE open up there? Not sure. Are we going to have bigger chefs or, more celebrity chefs going in there because it perhaps could be easier to get a star? Not sure.
Yeah, good. I think I want to see how the first one goes.
Hi, this is a question for you.
Yeah. Liam, tell us your thoughts.
No, I mean, look, I don't know the Doha market very well. I've only been once. Used to live there. I read what Rachel writes as gospel. My read whenever I see announcements in cater and things like that is that there are a lot of concepts that are imported into Qatar and Doha. A lot of them are coming from the UAE. A lot of those places in the UAE don't have stars, I would say, but it begs the question that when you launch these guides, you want, what's the headline look like? Right. In that sense, when these guys launch. And so I do wonder whether or not their concepts will play better in those markets and whether or not they'll probably earn accolades that they haven't earned elsewhere.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
So then moving on to Best Chef Awards, which happened very, very recently.
Yeah.
Held in Dubai, which was a biggie.
Yeah. Yes.
And it seemed like literally the world's best chefs descended upon us.
You couldn't turn around that room without seeing somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was...
Selfie City.
It was Selfie City. I didn't like the traffic very much that day. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
We'll come back to traffic.
But I mean... it was huge, and it was also great to see so many faces on the list from our perspective.
Yes.
You know,
And our region,
Himanshu, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
But this is the change this year. So it used to be numerical for those who aren't familiar, and now we've gone to 1, 2, and 3 knives. It's all based on voting. So it's peers, journalists, chefs, everybody. So this is also something more akin to 50 Best, where there are people identified in the industry that do vote on this. And I think that top 20% is only eligible for the 3 knives. So I saw Chef Dan from Row on 45, 2 knives to Chef Dan. And he was just kind of like, much like you when you won Michelin, like he didn't expect it. I was like, but you work really hard. You make great food. Of course you're getting two knives. Like, why is this a such to you? Yeah. But we were regionally, I mean, you heard us. We were.
You know, it was amazing. You know, so Sarah Keel, Tala, of course. You know, Tom Allen.
Yep.
You know, some really
Orfali, Himanshu,
of course.
Gregoire,
Free by Ava.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they were recognised. Solomon.
Yep.
And Gregoire and Himanshu, 3 knives. I think is incredible. You know, but that was a serious. For me, that looked like a serious room.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
And again, sorry to interrupt, but it's another way of the government supporting the city.
Yeah.
These events do not just happen. Somebody has to make them happen. And the coordination from the Best Chefs team, but also from the Dubai Eats and Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism, they're the ones who are making this, bringing all these people. And for me, and I don't know about you, I've seen a lot of journalists internationally, and they came to my house. Okay, I'm a small part of this big house city, but it was so nice to finally go, you get to have now, like, I've go to your country, now you've come to mine, and now we get to show off. Yeah.
I think that's super cool.
I mean, there were 2 things that for me that sort of stand out about Best Chefs. The first one is that with all these other guides and things that we mentioned, they are sponsored and procured by some sort of government body, tourism body, something like that, right? The interesting thing about Best Chefs is that it's industry voting. So there's chefs in the Faroe Islands and Dominican Republic, right? In Bahrain, like Tala, for example. Let's be candid, these are not places that are getting guides and things like that anytime soon, largely because the governments probably won't sponsor it, right? And they sort of sit somewhat in the shadows of like the culinary zeitgeist, right? Right. But nonetheless, they sit on a list with some of the world's, greatest chefs that have ever sort of walked the planet. And I think to that end, it's great for you personally. If you're a chef in the Faroe Islands or Dominican Republic who is working away, toiling away, this is a little moment in the sun for you.
It's a big deal.
And I think there's something to be commended about that, which the other guides and the other lists probably should reflect on, right? In terms of what are they really doing in order to sort of support ostensibly in the region. I'll say this, though, from a consumer perspective, I don't think Best Chefs is for consumers. I don't know anybody that's booking a restaurant because they found out the chef has 3 knives, that stuff. It feels like more of an industry supporting itself thing, which has its place, right? It was really lovely to see chefs hugging each other and seeing each other. And I think particularly because, COVID wasn't that long ago in that sense. And so for people to be able to travel and see each other again, and maybe there hasn't been that much of that over the last couple of years.
100%.
People coming from Japan, for example. So the UAE was one of the first to kind of, allow travel and allow people to go around and do things in restaurants here. But if you were in other countries, it probably wasn't that long ago that you were able to do these sorts of things. So it's lovely to see. But I think the context of Best Chef has to be, this is more about the industry supporting itself. I don't know anybody that's going, you know what, I'm going to go to that restaurant because the guy's got 3 knives.
And to say that the award is specifically just for the chef,
Correct.
Yes.
not the
Correct.
restaurant.
Correct.
And I think I was asking some of the chefs when I was there, because I've been fortunate enough to be invited and attend Michelin and 50 Best. It's a totally different energy at Best Chefs, because I think they're released from that pressure. There's a really distinct
they are released
pressure.
for the night.
Correct.
And you saw it.
You did. It was a late night. But I do think that when you get, into that top, 20 or Mina's 50 Best or World's 50 Best, and then Michelin or even Go and Mio, that this is like, okay, we can just have a good night, because it's just us all getting together and celebrating each other. Yeah. And so I think there is always should be space for that, because yes, these stars and accolades belong to the restaurants, but we know that many in the top are chef-driven concepts. And that's who I think, I know it's all really marketing at the end of the day, but I do believe, and maybe it's a good transition, a certain restaurant in town, Oceano, will be without its particular chef-led experience coming up very soon. And I'm really curious then how that looks, because to me, in my mind, Oceano is synonymous with Chef Gregoire.
Well, look, if we go into 50 Best,
Yeah.
first of all, this year, We didn't have it.
Yeah.
And there will be one next year. Oceano was on the list, I think 87,
That
I
sounds right.
believe.
Global.
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 Yeah.
So that's big, and of course Orfalio's in there, and Himanshu, I think it's number 13.
Correct.
13?
Lucky number 13.
Because he was 11 before, I
Yes,
believe, right?
correct.
So, but then if we talked about the Mina's 50 best,
Yes.
Again, it's judged in a very different way
Yeah.
to Michelin, judged in a very different way to Best Chef.
Yep.
What are your thoughts, Liam? First of all,
So I think Mina's different in the sense that I think Mina's more of a list of who's hot right now. That's kind of how it reads to me. So you could have 3 Michelin stars and not be in let's say the global list or anything like that. Mina's 50 best always, or 50 best always to me feels like a litmus test of popularity, right? Who's hot right now in that sense. I think the big change that we'll probably see this year is, look, let's put it on the table. There is an all-consuming conflict happening within the region, and one of the I think the reason why we didn't have, let's say, a party at the beginning of this year for Mina 50 Best, because it was in the wake of that conflict happening. Also, some of the constituents that were in the list the year before were not in the list, and I think that was out of deference and sensitivities of what was happening in the conflict. Now that there is going to be another list next year, I think in January, and there is going to be a party, I don't know whether or not. Let's say the voting bloc in Israel in particular will feature, whether or not they were voting. We don't know what happens with the voting. And so the restaurants that I think we'd loved to see on the list this year in 2024, will they be on the list in 2025? Not necessarily because they've slipped or anything like that, or they've become less popular, but there's only 50 spaces, right? And so if another country wasn't in the list for 2024 and they're in the list for 2025, then those spaces are not up for grabs anymore, right? So it's become more competitive in that sense.
and do you think it brings more sort of volume, more business, more tourism? 50 best, Mina's 50 best, Courtney?
I think it does. I think overall, I am one of the diners who seek out the lists. And we both been, 3 of us have been to Bangkok, I think, this year. And it was interesting to see where people slotted in. So I think maybe you can attest to the return on investment of the star is probably the highest.
Yeah.
But I do think global diners and people who are very interested in gastronomy will always be consulting Mina's 50 Best or World's 50 Best. And then that impact on your reservations and your bookings, it does go up. Yes. So to answer your question, yes, it does have an impact.
But then the final award that we sort of people don't sort of tend to talk about too much. We have Catering Middle East, but for me, it's Go and Malouf.
Yeah.
Because Go and Malouf, this is again not like a Michelin guide, but it is a Michelin guide in a way. So what are your thoughts on that?
So look, I know David. David's a friend. I talked about David on the podcast the first time I came on. My feeling on Go and Malouf is that so Michelin focuses on what's the plate, so they say, right? So they don't focus on the service or the ambience or anything like that. Go and Malouf is more holistic, right, in its outlook. So it's more of a true fine dining kind of a publication. And what I like about Go and Malouf that I don't see in some other guides and lists is that they do criticize as well too. So they will drop a seed or drop a clue,
Which I love.
right, somewhere in the guide saying like,
Opening the book.
hey, this is weird, or this dining room's a bit strange, or we ate that and it was underpowered, or something like that. And I think those kind of seeds being dropped are also quite helpful. The one thing that I think is interesting that I hear from some, this is a bit tangential, that I hear from some restaurateurs here in Dubai, is that they want to be in these guides and they don't understand why this person is, in Go and Malouf and why I'm not in Go and Malouf and things like that. I think a couple of restaurateurs also need to step back and go, to your point about bringing,
what does it do?
Seats, people through the door and that kind of stuff, is, do you think actually that this is going to be a real game changer for you in that sense? I know people who want to be in Go and Malouf, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's the right guide for you.
Right.
You're not a fine dining restaurant, that sort of thing. And by the way, you're quite busy. So, what is this doing for you that you don't already have?
Yes.
I agree. The other thing is that what's emerged really, really well, and it's happened all over the world with different guides. J-Fi, for example, she's monstrous, as in that sort of world, and she's said she's going to retire next year. So you can just imagine what's going to happen to her business, because people will want to make sure that they've dined there.
Noma
again.
Yeah.
But then if we talk about sort of street food, are we going to get bibs that have, because there's places in the world that have stars
Yes.
that are a street food stall. So, because we're talking a lot about the glitz and the glamour, so on and so forth, but there is a part of Dubai
Yes.
that has some phenomenal, beautiful hole-in-the-walls eateries.
Yep.
You know, so I think that's interesting, and it's sort of, and as very much like those food halls.
Yep.
There should be a space where
Yes.
you know you should sort of go and have a look and say. I mean, Ava from Frying Pan Adventures. I know that she's doing an incredible
She's been an
job.
advocate for absolute years. Yes.
So I'm just interested in that sort of space.
It almost would have to be a separate award, I think, that would start to recognize like true cheap eats. So
Yeah,
like
everybody
I have
talked about ravis, for example.
correct. I've got $10 or 10 quid or 10
Right,
whatever.
right.
What can I actually get with that? Because it would differ.
But I think so. Just 2 points on this. Our friend Pallavi, who's not here, she makes this point quite strongly that when you take a look at places like Bangkok, for example, and I think now there's a taqueria in Mexico that has a Michelin star,
Right.
These sorts of things. So Michelin, whether they do it for headlines, whether they do it sincerely, has started to sort of recognize these more kind of day-to-day, everyday type of places in that sense. I think that is possible here in Dubai. My feeling is that our jobs as journalists here in the market is to give those places a voice and to kind of bring them to the attention of inspectors. And I think this is also a noise that I hear about from local publications, like, well, what is our role now in Dubai now that we have all these big sort of international publications here? And I think our role is to make those international publications aware that they're not being totally inclusive. There are gaps in the market. And that this is a place that needs to be acknowledged because, a wonderful green stuffed falafel, in Dera or something like that is the sort of thing that people need to enjoy and that we should be diverting traffic to when they come to Dubai, as much as people should go to Atlantis, as much as people should go to the Link, like that sort of stuff. This is worthy of a special
And
journey.
executing those dishes can be just as difficult because we've all had, for example, a bad falafel or a bad whatever. And when you have an exceptional one,
shawarma.
correct?
Yeah,
When
for
you
sure.
have something that's like, wow, I won't forget that. I'm going to come back for that. There's something in every category that I think is important and does need to be recognized. But it's a lot. There's a lot of noise out there.
Look, and the other one, when it comes to the journalistic space that I'm very passionate about, is that when we all go on these international press trips, we also get shown the culture and heritage.
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that here? Why are we not taking the journalists to go to the Bedouin centers, to the farms, to sort of explore more of that side of things? Because we all know the restaurant side of things. We know it. But we should be singing more about the shua, cooking in the ground, all of that sort of stuff. Because I really love it and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, like a trip to Emirates Biofarm,
Right.
Or go with Chef Shah, who brought in seeds to develop, and she worked with
Right.
Green Heart or Emirates
Exactly.
Biofarm to say, I want these. We can grow them. We're going to make this happen,
Right.
and then I'm going to sell that onto the consumer as well.
And or go on a dhow.
Yes.
Because it's easy to go on a dhow and have a local chef talk about all of that kind of stuff. I just think it would add more value, in my opinion.
I think this boils down to whoever's sponsoring the press trip. I mean, we're really talking shop now, and that's. But I think this really comes down to who sponsors the press trip. So if I think of it in the broad strokes, when it tends to be chef or restaurant supported, I think you get a little bit more of that insight of, this is my supplier, and on my day off, this is where the rest of us tend to go. So you get a little bit more of that local flavor. When the sponsor is a hotel group or something like that, it's more like, yeah, we're going to take you on a boat trip because guess what? We offer that boat.
Right.
Like
Yes.
that sort of stuff. So I think some of it is a little bit of a like, who has a thumb on the scale in terms of the press trip. But I think we should be echoing up saying, look, as what do journalists want to do? They have stories they need to write.
Yeah.
They need to sell stories to publications, right?
Right.
And very often I go on a press trip and I go, I have 3 stories I can get out of this and I'm going to give them to different publications, right? And that, for the greater good, that we can start talking about these stories.
Yeah, I just think there's a missed opportunity, in
Yes.
my opinion, about
Yeah.
talking about the incredible heritage that we have
Agreed.
here.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But then if we talk about Middle Eastern culture and heritage, there was one chef who has left us.
Yeah.
And that is the great late Greg Malouf.
Yep.
He was, for me, the OG when it comes
Godfather,
to to singing all things Middle Eastern and modern Middle Eastern. So quite famously, in my first or second year at college, one of my friends, Simon, he was like, have you checked out this book? And it happened to be Greg Malouf's. And then I was like, well, no. And then we opened it like a beautiful encyclopedia,
Yeah.
and then many years later, I was fortunate enough to get him on the show.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, and we did a 2-part special. And I've got to say, I was incredibly nervous to get him on. But he was just so humble, super humble. And the way he spoke about his childhood and the way he spoke about what he wanted to do for Lebanese food, for Levant food, it was just phenomenal.
He's so much more than just this region. I was in Australia, I think 2016, and we were in Melbourne, and it came up, and I had just met him. I just like had one of his meals, and I mentioned him, and we were on a food tour, of course, and the gentleman was like, you know, Greg Malouf, and like the respect that just even a continent away that he had. And he was a gentleman, and he was like, I'd been seated next to him on different occasions. And I also think he just had the most beautiful, one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken was he just had the hand and just to think about, how he plated, and it was truly brilliant, and it is just a loss to the region, to the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also that's the thing, is that Troy again worked with him for nearly 25 years plus.
Wow.
In Melbourne, in Australia. So they worked together there, and whenever Gregoire opened Zahira in the H hotel, Troy was his head chef, and then it sort of spiraled from there. But I remember also all the different pop-ups he was doing, and every time he was just taking photos of the food, it just looked so beautiful.
Yeah.
So he will be truly missed.
And you speak of his cookbooks. For those maybe aren't aware, James Beard is a massive award in the States, and I think multiple, but at least one of his cookbooks is a James Beard Award winner. It's a big deal. Yeah. It's a very big deal.
So he's an absolute legend.
I never met him. I saw him once across a room at Boca. Apparently, he used to quite like going to Boca quite a lot. Apparently, don't we all?
Yeah. Thank you, Omar.
Thank you. Cheers, Omar. Thanks, Shiv. Thank Patricia. But I went backpacking from Beirut to Damascus back in 2010.
Wow.
Right, with my then girlfriend, now wife. Wow. And we came back from that sort of eye-opening trip to the Middle East, we have to do this, we have to do that. And we were living in London at the time. And I remember going on Amazon and going, I'm now, as you kind of do when you come back from these trips, I'm now going to cook everything. I'm going to become a master of everything. Like this sort of stuff. And I bought 2 cookbooks, and they were both Greg and Lucy Malouf cookbooks. One was Arabesque and one was Saha, and I've still got them on my shelf today. And I remember living in London. I remember going to Momo. I remember going to Petersham Nurseries, like these sorts of things. But I didn't know who he was in that he was just this guy whose name kind of kept popping up. And so for me, he became very synonymous with this culture kind of Middle Eastern food. And then moving here, and again, I saw him across a room once in Boca and never met him. And it's just, it's kind of one of those life's great shames in that sense. But
because he would sit down with you at all the meals when I went to try his restaurants. Like he would, he would be running between your table and the kitchen and make you feel so welcome in his space, no matter where it was.
Yeah. But in the sense of, true hospitality, he was very much a gentleman in that respect, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So then the challenges that we've had, obviously, we spoke about what's going on regionally, but what about any sort of, have you seen, so for you, Courtney, have you seen any sort of, apart from what's going on regionally in the gastronomic landscape, have you seen anything sort of creeping in challenge-wise?
I just think we still are trying to step out from that Dubai superlative, the tallest, the goldest, the most whatever. Yeah. I think still people have a fundamental misunderstanding that we are doing great things here, and they are authentic, and they are exceptional, and they can match anybody else in the world. To me, it's kind of the challenge of overcoming what Dubai is and has done a great job selling. I think it's when people get here and say, for example, we haven't mentioned that much Chef Suleiman. I'd say go there, third culture. You have no idea what it is to have one parent from this, one parent from here, and you were brought up here. What does that look like on a plate? He's doing it in a way that nobody else is. So to me, the challenge is kind of, I think regionally, people know, and I think chefs that have visited here know, but I think externally, maybe for the consumer, the visitor, the guest, they still think we might be this other thing. And it's like, no, we are doing it. We have been doing it. So to me, that's kind of a challenge.
Yeah. 2 points. And from someone who lives in Dubai, the major challenge I think for restaurants now is traffic, right?
Yes.
It is traffic. Let's be honest. The idea of sitting on Shakeside Road or Al Khail or anywhere for an hour and a half, Hesse Street,
The Palm.
Basically,
That's not usual. That's not
name a road in
typical.
Dubai. Yeah. This is a problem, and so what's happening is that some people are suffering, and to some the victors go the spoils. So areas like Dubai Hills Business Park, for example, I think is succeeding largely because of the quality of the constituents that are there. Let's be honest, you have to go somewhere for a reason.
Yes.
But I think also people like me, and there's this sort of swathe of villas that stretch from Al Khail down to Al Qudra, right? Hundreds of thousands of people live there. They're not going to DIFC. Right, they're going to Dubai Hills and places like that because it's 20 minutes away.
It's really interesting you say DIFC because I haven't
away.
had a conversation about DIFC in
Ever.
a long time.
I went to Josette for the first. I went for unless it's Boca, and I love Omar so much. I go for lunch. That's great. There's some exceptional choices for lunch. There's a little bit less traffic, but I went to Josette, which was like the first night time I had been to DIFC in months. Yeah. It's a choice. You are saying, I'm going to commit to being in my car 90 minutes, and the Korean fees are going to be high. And I think that Liam is exactly right that right now, because I live in Dubai South, I'm pretty much Palm is my last stop. And that's not that far into the city at all. I can come up and do other stuff, but it is a real challenge.
I think this hype. I think my biggest advice to restaurants in Dubai now is open where the people are. Right. Look at what supermarkets do. Okay. Yes, there's a huge Carrefour. Yes, there's a huge Xi'an or something like that. But the ones that are busy are the ones that are like a 10-minute walk away or just down the road, or someone can get on their scooter. And I think this kind of migration to the burbs, right, and that also shows a maturity in the region as well too. Like London, which you and I know very well. Okay, yes, there's the West End, but there's those places in Chelsea and Fulham and Richmond and all that kind of stuff. Those are the ones that tend to be very busy, right?
Even Akmal, chef,
Yes.
Cafe Funk Coolio.
Yes.
No, yes,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. Correct.
I have
Well said.
Yes, I have. For Inez and Akmal, they're so lovely. They've invited me multiple times. It's 70 kilometers from where I live one way. And I love them. Yeah. And it's still, there are people that, because now Dubai is that spread out. And yes, I made a choice to live at one end, but I've got my little JLT, Dubai Hills. Those are all reasonable. But I really feel bad because there are chefs that I know and love. And I'm just like, hi, I don't have 3 hours today.
But also, you literally... J1 La Mer.
11
that's
at
just
13
open
outlets?
13.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've been invited several times, but there's so much overwhelm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the time.
Yes.
Yes.
And so if you're going to have any sort of restaurant opening, do not do it at 7:00. 8, or lunch, or as what I said before, if I was to ever open a high-end fine dining restaurant, I would get my friends in for a sneak peek lunch to say, listen, I need you to really judge this properly.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have anyone else in, and I don't want to bite into your time. I would do it like.
I'll give a
super
shout
early.
out. Soul Communications, they rep or have worked with Lila Molino and Pitfire. 12 to 5. It's a rolling time to come in. So no matter where you are, I think that this concept, because to get everybody there, inevitably, we've all been to events where it says 7, you might not have the last person until 8:30. And as somebody who's always on time, I'm ready to eat at 7 because I want to go back at a certain time. Right. So I think you're exactly right that for those who are listening that have the friends and family who want to do these trial kind of meals or soft launches, go for lunch.
Where I think restaurant, I don't see the numbers, so I don't know how profitable this is, and so in there, this may be where I'm wrong. But what I've noticed on the aggregated delivery apps is that restaurants are now starting to do much more of a, let's say, higher end type delivery model in that sense. So what we saw during COVID, where restaurants were trying to get their menu out to people at their homes. So Reef has kushi now, which is the combination of kushiyaki and holy cow, for example. 3 Phils have their own and have done for a while in that sense. So and also Chef Izu, has their own concepts inside of Deliveroo and all these other apps. And I think part of that, I think, has to be sort of a tacit acknowledgement that people don't want to leave their homes, right? And that these channels of getting food to people have matured. And so traffic is a problem, right? And I think that's something that has a sort of a soft hand that people don't speak about.
The other thing I wanted to discuss with you, and it just popped into my head, two things. Number one, I just heard that they're now building apartments with no kitchens because people don't cook anymore, and there's so many aggregators. So you have Talabat, delivery, so on and so forth. Number one. And then the second one, challenge-wise, because I've spoken to quite a few foodie people, but not you two about this. Somebody feed Phil Dubai episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts off with the gold burger, which he drops on the floor. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought the representation was pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it.
I think somebody clearly did their research. So anytime I see RYBA, for example, I always think she is such a wonderful representation of, again, to that challenge of what do you think Dubai is and what it actually can be. To me, that was so important that speaks to me about how they approach a city, that if it's with her, then okay, we've done something right. Or Folly, we have to, right? He's a legend. What he's doing is fantastic. The food that he is doing is unlike anybody else, and we need those voices, because when, unfortunately now, getting to Syria, a problem, but I can have Syrian or Syrian fusion. There's a lot of places I can't do that, but I can do that in Dubai.
Yeah, I think it's.
But no, I don't. I can't. Even I am at best a sous chef in my own house. I can't imagine not cooking. I guess a hot plate you could do ramen or something. But no, I like to.
Yeah, but imagine there's people that are not cooking; they just like constant takeaway or meal plans. Sorry, that's the other monstrous business that people keep asking. Oh, you open a meal plan, because people they just don't want to cook. Some people they just don't want to cook. And I understand it with their corporate jobs, all that kind of stuff. They have no time.
I would say on the high-end version, though, shout out Carne Store, because now we're in barbecue season. I realize this is evergreen, but I think you can still get restaurant-quality products. So I love a barbecue. I know many people do, and I think while there are other stores and whatever, that Carne Store keeps expanding, and now they even have a pork section.
Nice.
So for those non-halal treats, you can have something in your own house. You don't have to leave the house; it will come to you.
Liam?
I think the thing that actually worries me the most about what you said is not the fact that there aren't kitchens and homes and things like that. Look, in busy cities like Manhattan, you don't have laundry facilities and stuff like that, right? So I think it's more of an indictment about space and affordability of housing. That's kind of my read on that. What worries me more is culturally. Right. So I remember vividly sitting down with my Jamaican grandfather and my mother and all these other sorts of people and being taught how to cook something. Right. And then my son, I'm enjoying giving him a blueberry or I gave him mashed potato for the first time the other day, like this sort of stuff. And so this kind of heritage of passing down food, right, and what that represents as a culture, that worries me more, right, in that sense. And so are we going to lose storytelling, palpable experiential storytelling, because your home doesn't have a kitchen?
Yeah.
I realize this is probably like a little bit blown out of proportion, but actually that was the thing that sent a cold shudder through me.
I think we have to be closer when sharing bread and telling stories over a table. For me, it is the single most important thing. It's one of the reasons I became a chef, because whatever it was, you're just making it with love, or you're receiving it from somebody. That is the story.
It is. And I have a good segue then for those who don't have a kitchen. Supper clubs. We are at peak supper club, and we're even seeing the most successful supper clubs. Obviously, Neha and Kanoya is our ultimate story, and her continued success speaks to just how seriously she took the production of ramen. It's amazing. But now, I do get invited. I do prioritize actual restaurants, but I think in the community, there is so much you can experience that is from all different cultures. And, people now have fans. Like supper clubs will, they have different seasons, just like a regular restaurant would. And you see these really unique spaces. You'll see brands collaborating. I hosted a alcohol event at a supper club. So I think that there are places in the market where smart brands might actually step out and say, yeah, we love the restaurant concept, but there's cooler spaces.
Absolutely.
And,
But Liam, also, you recently went to this beautiful wine dinner in somebody's villa. right?
Oh yeah.
How'd that
You
go?
know, but also last week. But it's completely private. But it
Yes.
looked.
Yeah,
I mean, the wine selection, and I saw a little bit of the table setup looked plush.
Yeah,
Yes.
This guy's not short of money.
Emirates Hills?
Emirates Hills.
Emirates Living, yeah.
I think part of me is still walking through the living room back to my car. But that, I think, to Courtney's point, that is a great example of, and PRs are smart and they realize who's their target market. How can I reach them in a meaningful kind of way? And this was an event that was hosted by Gambero Rosso, which is an Italian publication, 35 years long in the making. And it was together with the Italian embassy, and the host, I think, is sort of like me, is an Italophile. And then he had a large number of private collectors who were there. And so here were 6 or 7 vineyards in Italy that were flown out to Dubai as a part of Gambero Rosso, and there's money in Dubai, and there are wine collectors here in Dubai, and it's just that kind of laser-focused, targeted, attempt to meet people where they are. I think it was just a stroke of genius.
Yeah, I mean, look, I also attended a couple of sort of high-end whiskey tasting events also, and they are really targeting, as you said, the high net worth individuals. Yeah. And also Le Clos opened up.
MMI at the Big Taste this year, I've been in multiple years. This year really felt unique, and speaking to different wine personalities in the city, the knock-on effect of that somebody like maybe Nye Timber would host then a lunch at Boca, or there were so many different things that, for those who are interested in wine and spirits, this year more than anything, the Big Taste really, between, I don't know what happened, if everybody got the memo, but you had big brands coming in from around the world, and some first timers from Chile, some first timers from amazing parts, and they're all there for the week, and they're going to make use of that time. It was a fantastic industry event, and even, I'm not a Wisset too, but I think it is just still fun to go around and say yes with honors.
Soon to be three.
I'm Lindsay from the tasting class is always like, Courtney, do, and I come in, I'm like, I just enjoy drinking wine. But I do think that it is, again, speaking to that maturity, that we have this food award section, but we also have wine, which is really coming up, and it could just be wine and spirits. So big whiskey makers.
And also, Courtney, just to add to your point, what I also think is really impeccable, especially from the sort of Michelin end of dining, is that Rowan 45 Trescent, they also give you this beautiful non-alcoholic pairing that they're doing in-house.
Yes.
So I think that also speaks volumes.
Yes.
Yep.
To how far we've come in that market. So if you want to enjoy this experience, you don't have to have the alcohol.
I think this is a global trend that I'm seeing. So I think it has a particular resonance in this region, largely because of cultural reasons, right? In that sense, but I can't really think of a world's 50 best 3-star restaurant that doesn't have quite an exceptional sort of juice or non-alcoholic pairing, right? So Hisha Franco is like this. I think Norbert has one as well too, if I remember correctly. Here locally, you've got sort of 11 Woodfire, Oceano. Gomio have a section as a part of their guide where they focus on the best non-alcoholic pairings in the region. Broadly, when you speak to winemakers around the world, alcohol consumption is going down. There's largely generational. Gen Zs are drinking less. Right. And so I think what you're recognizing is this pivot now. And, you've got Heineken with their sort of 0% alcohol, and all these other sorts of people who are going, we need to pivot to this non-alcoholic space, largely because we have to support a business, but also we have to kind of move where the audience is as well too. And I think here in this region, so my challenge to the region is, so given the kind of cultural relevance of that and the opportunity of now with the global trend, how do we become a leading voice in this sector through local spicing, local ingredients, local tradition and things like that, in order to add to the conversation about non-alcoholic drinking?
Well, just to sort of also go back, Liam, because I didn't ask you, but I think I also publicly said it on Dubai One TV, that in the future, in my opinion, and I strongly believe it, that we will have a #1 best restaurant in the world 3-star, in my opinion. Now, you also this year dined at the #1 best chef restaurant, which was Rasmus.
Oh, yes, that end of last year.
End of last year.
Yeah.
How was the experience? Because it's not your average 2-hour sitting.
No. So I Pallavi and I went together. It's people talk a big game about experiential dining in that sense, and I think what really stood out to me about Alchemist is that Rasmus has a very clear vision and a very decisive point of view. He wants to sort of be disruptive. He wants to get his point of view out there. I think there are some chefs at that level who aren't so pointed, and I think they're probably playing the game, and you're seeing a lot of media training and all that sort of stuff. But what he does is he uses the optics and the plate in order to have conversations about things that are happening in society at large. So there's a course where a chicken foot is served to you in a cage on hay, and you've got this enormous sort of auditorium amphitheater that's above you, where you just see lots of chickens in cages sort of happening. And the whole point around this is that what are we doing in terms of animal welfare, for example? This restaurant has hundreds of people, if not thousands of people who go through it in a year. What are we doing in terms of animal welfare and animal husbandry? And then it switches on to sustainability and polluting the oceans and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't club you over the head with it, right? So it's not it's not very woke, right, in that sense, in terms of its messaging, but it is very subtle. So the quality is there, but it's provocative in a way that you walk out of the restaurant and ask yourself, that is a really good point, actually. And it's a seed that's dropped and lingers with you for a while.
And then how long were you at the restaurant for?
6.5 hours.
And how many courses?
Impressions. There are 50 impressions.
I do apologise to the Alchemist. So instead of courses, so impressions, 50.
50. Yeah.
Okay, this is another weird question.
Yeah.
Did you feel the time, or was it all sort of in one way? Did you really feel like I was there for 5-6 hours, or did you enjoy it so much that you just didn't feel it at all?
I didn't really feel it at all, I have to say. So you do move around a little bit in terms of the rooms, but you do spend a good chunk of 4 hours inside of one room, inside of this large sort of amphitheater. They have these little almost escape hatches, off the side. So if you need to go and have a cigarette or go to the bathroom or just stand outside and get some fresh air and stuff like that, you do have all of that. But it was incredible. I would go back again. I think about it regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like the film The Menu.
Yeah.
So okay. Yeah.
There's limits. I also dined with the maestro this year. I happened to be in Italy in April, and I was in Modena. And I was already staying at Massimo Bottura's. He's got like a bed and breakfast, which was incredible.
Just chilling out there.
Just chilling out there. And then through some wonderful people I know, I got a reservation for Francescana. Why am I blanking?
Francescana.
And how was that?
But then, even better. So for those who know who have been, there's the restaurant, but then there's the wine room, which is where an elite table of 8 can sit.
And he was there, right?
And he was there, and it was the first service of the new menu, and he served it himself. And it was just, like, I still don't think, I'm like goosebumps still, but like, it was, he's been, obviously he has Torno Subito here. For those who know him, he's just doing his thing, and he loves to serve, and he loves hospitality. And I had a not his food, but I'd had a similar kind of concept, which was a global experience. And that was a few months earlier. And then I had his kind of same take on that. And it was, you could just tell the difference.
Okay.
This man knows what he's doing. Full stop.
But being served by him
Yeah.
with his dishes in his cellar.
Yes.
I mean,
it just, everything came together in a way. And I was with my husband and some of our best friends, and another, it was a wonderful journalist from Mexico, and her daughter was there. So it was the 6 of us. And it was just so special. And we all knew it was so special. But to have a first service, you'd think, I mean, obviously with them, there are no hiccups. It's just seamless from that first drop. And he's coming out and he's doing it. But behind the scenes, it's all just like, to make it look that easy. Because we have been to meals where the timing and the pacing gets a little off, and then it kind of throws everything. But this is just drop, and eat.
oh my God.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Had to humble brag. I'm going to keep saying it for the rest of my life.
So then, before we sort of go into a few more details, I want to understand your future predictions, especially when it comes to the region, Emirati cuisine. I want to understand, are you sick and tired of omakase, or do you want more or less?
I'll take, from our current players, Hoseki and Takahisa, I'll always take omakase. From there, I think we're good. Emirati, I think cuisine, we only want to see more, whether it's fast casual, whether it's something a little more higher end, whether it's maybe something in the desert that we could go to and experience kind of in a space that is truly representative of the region. I would love to see what Tala is going to do next because her voice is exceptional, and having been in her restaurant and had her food, I think the time is kind of over for people to try that, but I feel very fortunate to have done it. But for my original kind of top of the show, I want to see more like the Beit Miriam and the Orfali teams, which is getting out there, trying different concepts. You've built a brand. I love that they're keeping it here, but it could go somewhere else as well, because I do think our food is important. And as much as we've imported for years, it's now our turn to export.
Yeah, I agree. Liam?
So this time last year, there felt like there was going to be seismic change and pivots and all these sorts of things happening. My feeling in Dubai is that it's going to be more of a game of inches and not feet at the moment. And I think that's largely because I think some people are leaving their posts. There's some chefs I know leaving their restaurants and they haven't announced yet, right? So these changes are coming. And I think you're going to see a consolidation cooling in the market, 13,000 restaurants. Also financially, people are really feeling the pinch now at the moment too.
That's big.
Right? And so how that squares with 2, 3, 4, 5,000 dirham meals. Okay, that's not the majority of people. That is the sort of the 1% of the 1%. The demographic of Dubai is changing as well too, a little bit subtly, and I think that's playing its role. So I'm expecting, let's say, successful brands that people know, maybe doing, to your point, like an extension, saying now we're trying our hand at this, and they've got the following for that. But instead, I don't think we're going to see a lot of, the link opening and Atlantis the Royal type stuff and the kind of big splash and bang and noise and investment that comes with that. I'm not hearing a lot of that. I think if anything, you'll have some 2024 launches that we talked about. Gobu, for example, that might go into 2025. Timbuktu, for example, I think was meant to open this year and it hasn't, right? Stuff like that. So there's some things like that I think will extend into 2025. I think the market is cooling and probably recognizing that it's more about doubling down, quality, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that's my read.
Look, 2 points for me. I think Gregoire will be sorely missed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a chef, I'm extremely proud of everything that he has achieved in that space. He left for a year, came back, and purely attacked that place.
He did.
And he really put his signature on, and he did some incredible things. I think he was also one of the chefs that was listed to have one of the biggest amount of collabs in a year.
Yeah, for sure. And the names who came.
I mean,
we got to experience global dining without leaving the city.
Huge names.
Yeah.
And so I only wish him like the very best of luck and onwards and upwards continuously.
I hope
for
his
Gregoire.
talent is retained in country.
100%.
That's my biggest hope, is that, because when Reef, for example, left play, to lose a talent like Reef, we didn't. He was very smart about how he wanted to do his own thing, and we got to keep that talent here. And from the first 50 best, he's a chef's chef, and he won that first award. And I think it's for a very specific reason.
Yes.
And to see his successes from there, it shows maybe he was the one to break the mold, to say you don't have to be part of a hotel or a big conglomerate. You can do it on your own. You should do it, because it's still your food at the end of the day, and maybe somebody else shouldn't be owning it.
Yeah. And the other one I'm really interested in is Gobu. I'm really interested to see the storytelling behind it, as well as the food. Sahar is an incredible chef.
She's so young too. Yeah.
But I know Panchali is doing everything possible to really put it on the map.
Yeah.
So Emirati wise, I think we're going to see some really interesting things there.
Yeah. But I go to Friends this week, so I can't make a prediction yet to see. I assume they'll come in at least one. So let's see. But and also to go back to the kind of sommelier wine perspective, allegedly, and again, I missed both the preview and I haven't been yet, but it is supposed to be one of the most exceptional wine lists in the city, maybe the country, probably the country.
1,200 labels.
So they have, there has been an experience, but maybe some offline chatter is you have to walk through the Atlantis, a lot of the Atlantis, to get to this. And it is, of the customer experience, when I think of maybe in Europe, especially Norbert's Place or certain 3 stars, your customer experience begins from the moment the car door is opened, right? And I'm coming in, and if I'm dressed up and spending a lot of money, maybe I don't want to see people in robes and flip-flops. Maybe I want a little bit something different. So I'm curious because in my mind, for the price point, my expectations are very, very high.
Yeah.
What is the price point?
2,000 dirhams before.
So it's 2,000 dirhams. Menu food only.
You get water. Water's included.
Very
in
good.
2,000
So you get
dirhams.
water.
Yep.
So that's not a joke. That's a
true.
serious. And then if you have the alcohol pairing or the wine pairing on top of that,
It's the second or third most expensive menu I can think of in Dubai. I think Hoseki and Takahisa probably, but that's not unusual for high-end omakase to be at that price. So this is the, as you know, click in the comments on Instagram when this thing is shared if you can think of a more expensive menu. But it's the only non-Japanese omakase menu I can think of in that 2,000 plus club.
right?
Before they've got any stars.
And before you have, I like to have a glass of wine, and I usually would go for a pairing, and especially at some place that has this depth in their cellar, and that I think is another 1,000.
Before the cream, before the babysitter,
Right, right.
before all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? You're it's 2,000 dirhams ahead, but it's lovely. It is really lovely, but it's a notable expense.
Okay, so it's basically like a special one-off anniversary
Once a
birthday,
year. That's
once
the
a
other
year
thing
sort of
is
thing, right?
that some of these, depending on how often they change the menu, you might be a repeat customer, but you're only going once during the year because of, funds basically. I mean, maybe there are people out there that can drop that sort of money on, a monthly basis. Good on you. But it's, it does, in a city that does have superlatives, we do have good food that is offered at different price points.
But then when it comes to sort of future predictions, when it comes to sort of restaurants, we're not going to talk about closings because that will just happen naturally. But if you talk about trends, as in like, is there a specific sort of food trend that you would like to see or something that you would not want to see anymore, or any particular restaurants who, like Takahisa was saying, we want to get a star? Any thoughts on that?
So let's start with the positives. I would like to see more variety within the offerings. I think the crucible is probably happening at the supper club end, right? But for example, I talked about Al Naka, right? So there's a lot of Asian food in Dubai. It is everywhere. I'll throw a stone outside this window and I'll hit 4 of them, along the way. That sort of thing. But I can't think of another sort of Laotian restaurant anywhere, right? He's the first one as far as I know. And I think that kind of unique storytelling, differentiation of voice is important. We've got Gigi from Girl and the Goose who's opening up, right? And Anantar in Business Bay, right? So we've got a couple of Latin American places in Dubai, but that's a very specific, let's say, voice that is not out there, not articulated. My beloved Caribbean food is not something, there's one place I can kind of think of, right? Sort of Miss Lily's or something that is doing it, but that is very Jamaican food, and there's an archipelago of other islands where that voice is not being discussed. You're Venezuelan, for example, right? From Venezuela, where is that food being represented here in Dubai, right? And I think Dubai. So while we have 13,000 restaurants in that sense, I think there is an over-indexing across maybe 4 or 5 pockets of types of food and I think, okay, where's the rest of this that's undiscovered? Unarticulated, and I think people probably want. But investors are smart. They look at this and they go, sashimi sells, right? And so if I'm going to chuck my money into something, I'm going to chuck it back into sashimi. I get it. And so that's why we need to have, to your point, these supper clubs and all those other things, because they have to be proven concepts for investors to go, cool, I'll give you some money for a space.
But also put burrata on the menu because it makes a lot of money.
But make it burrata.
Oh my God.
Yeah, jerk burrata.
Yeah. No, I agree, obviously, with what Liam has said. I think diners are getting smarter. I think things like Table, Low, and Boca are doing such strides in sustainability. I think especially as Gen Z comes up and starts spending more, they're going to be asking a lot more of these questions. So whether I'm going to have a vegetarian experience or I have good vegetarian options or I know the provenance of where my food has come from, we're getting there. But I think so many people can do better, as in where does my food come from ultimately? And yes, we have to fly a lot of it in. We are in a desert, but I hope to see more of that when we look at a menu, we really understand, the breakdown of it. But I'm just so proud of, I think, locally what I see, but to Liam's earlier point with traffic, it does have an impact of where I decide to go on a weekend.
Yeah.
That's why everyone's going to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. But and just quickly, two voices we haven't mentioned that I think definitely deserve mentioning: Chef Kelvin and Chef Hadrian.
Yeah.
So it's a weird spot for me because I think they are both in the guide. Hopefully, yes.
Yes.
But it's a weird spot where they're not quite bib and they're not quite star, but in my mind they are. So if you think of very original food from two different gentlemen, I am constantly recommending them. Hadrian has just been a voice, obviously, since
Hadrian
he was
is such a legend.
from Inked,
He's
but
wonderful man.
he's just cool. And I think the business model of having a chef's table one night a week, it makes it smart. You're not investing a lot of money in this that might not sell or whatever. He's approached it super fun. It's I would take somebody who hasn't done a degustation to experience both Kelvin and Hadrian to have this experience, because you'd be like, oh, I don't know if I can eat 11 courses. Trust me, you can. It's gorgeous food. You're going to love it. Both of them are very reasonably priced, and both of them just kind of vibe. So it's, unfortunately, I get to Shea Wam quite a bit more often because I work across the way, but also June is downtown. And Kelvin's he's got pastry, he's got cakes, he's got this, he's always shifting something. I'm always so excited to try his food. I'd love to see both of them expand more towards my side.
Dubai South, guys.
Yeah, guys.
Dubai South.
Also, we have no dark kitchen, so I have been onto the Deliveroo team. There's
whoever opens up in Dubai South,
they're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, I'm looking for investors right now. Dubai South to
Dubai
open
South.
up.
I'm in. Yeah. But so I do think trends that are, just to go back to that chef voice, that chef-led kitchen, that's who I always want to recommend. And it's not to say that the Zumas or the LPMs or the Koyas aren't always going to have their space. They're wildly consistent. They do a good job. But if I'm supporting somebody, I want to support a kitchen that is led. And so that's why Chef Gigi or Gabriella, who's going to open Girl and the Goose, I'm over the moon because I don't get to have that food. Authentically, I don't get to have that food.
Yeah, and Penelope also, she opened up in Time
Yeah.
Yes, of
Market,
course.
which is amazing.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Look, and do you know what's funny? Also, when it comes to Hadrian and Kelvin, from an insider chef point of view, all the chefs rave,
Of course,
about their food. Genuinely,
Yeah.
without
agreed.
pretense, they rave. And not only are they amazing people
Yeah.
and very supportive within the community, but their food is up there. So I would love to see them, minimum of a bib,
Yes, minimum.
Because I just think, and also Hadrian calls it fun dining. He doesn't call it
dining.
fine
Fine
dining.
dining.
It's
And
fun.
I went for the brunch recently.
Yeah.
I think somebody who expanded this year, Chef Shaw, who's moved from Takiara to also Lila Molino, but Lila Molino is a mixed space. It is a grocer. It is like a store. The upstairs is doing all day. Go chill out. Bring your dog. More dog-friendly spaces.
Yeah, true.
But you like
She's
to see,
manufacturing now.
correct. But she's had this in her mind. She had to find the right space. She did. We want to celebrate those that are making smart decisions, investing in places that, and to have a business model where your portfolio is not just the restaurant. That's great. Exceptional. However, what else can you do? The Lighthouse, Hashem's is somebody else who has spaces where I'm always going in there. I want the food. Give me my baked feta, but also give me all the little tchotchkes in the store.
Yeah. And predictions for you, Liam?
I mean, I think for me it was more of that. Okay, so you mean in terms of guides and that sort of stuff?
Yes.
Okay, I think the big one is, does Frenching come in hot with 3, right? And that's really, I think, the question that people are asking. They've obviously done it in Stockholm. They were the first 3-star restaurant in Stockholm and in Sweden, right? They did it with Zen in Singapore in less than a year, right? So
3-star.
So they came in hot 3 stars with Zen, right, in Singapore. So the pedigree is there. They've imported their thoroughbred of Swedish sort of talent over to Dubai. My feeling was that you can see it in their eyes, right? You can see that's what they want. I think the question for Dubai is, and I think we talked about this before, does the first 3-star restaurant go to an international import, or does the first 3-star restaurant go to maybe like a local hero,
right,
in that sense? And that's an optics game. And while optics should not play into these things when it comes to the diner experience, because if you're 3 stars and you're kind of, being held back at 2 for optics, that feels very unfair to the people who work every day, but also for the diner as well too, who's being misled that somehow this isn't quite the perfect article, right, in that sense. But I do think there will be grumblings, and not necessarily about Franchen per se, so just to divorce it from them personally, but I think there will be grumblings if it's that the first 3-star in Dubai is an international import versus, let's say, a homegrown
It's a
talent.
big decision.
Yeah.
It is, but then, okay, look, if we go back to the link and to one and only, so Paco has 3. The Noor menu and the now closed other restaurant, a very similar menu, a very similar experience. I went early days. I mean, it was, again, seamless from the start to finish. The fit out was great. It's in a it's one and only, right? So start to finish, you are in an exceptional place. Closed down. Dubbies, who is recognized many times over as a top chef, the best chef, a number 1, also no star. So it's, I think the guide can go a few different ways, right? And we don't know. Obviously, it's a very different experience. Street XO versus Divergio are completely different experiences.
But the expectation when David came was extremely high.
Yeah.
Correct.
And he left the day before the guide was awarded, so
Yeah.
He was absent.
he knew.
That's a fact. Yeah.
He's a busy man. He's a
Yes.
busy man.
Yes. So anyway, I think, I always want to see more, but I want to see more for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And so I will retain judgment on Franzen for now. But for example, I think we all dined at Suring this year in
Well,
Bangkok.
that's what I was going to say.
And to me, that's a 3.
Suring is a 3-star.
It's a 3-star experience. Yeah. So it's
Stop it.
Correct.
And when you walk in, well, the car is open. The chefs are there. Welcome. You see all the La Table du Monde.
Yeah.
All of that, and
Yeah.
then you walk into this pristine, beautiful
It's
place.
ethereal.
yes.
Right. But then you go to Gagan.
Yeah.
And that is an experience
Indeed.
in itself.
Yep.
That's a fact.
Yep.
That's a statement.
And again, I'd
Correct.
be interested to see if
Yeah.
anyone would have. How can I put it politely?
I don't think
would be
but-
brave enough to do something like that here. You
No.
know?
No, I
mean,
don't think so.
That is,
Yeah.
and you're talking that is hardcore.
Yeah.
Dining, when you have the concert, the singing, all of that, the food, the storytelling. I mean, it's really extreme.
Yes. Yes. But I think of 3 stars.
It'd be interesting.
I'm gonna-
I was rattling through some chefs in my head where I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we have a lot of
Maybe it could be a supper club. Who
yes.
knows? Do you know what I mean?
yes.
Invite only.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. In Dubai Hills, Liam.
Dubai Hills.
Right.
Yeah.
We have our own storytelling. But no, that is anyway, that's an experience. You can go if you're going to Bangkok. You can pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, now it's quick fire.
Oh,
Okay.
God, shoot.
And it's going
Let's
to
do
be
Yeehaw.
festive.
Okay.
So-
Bring it.
So, ladies first, and then Liam, right?
Okay.
So, first one. Turkey or whole roasted rib of beef
For
Christmas.
oh, it's turkey.
I would prefer beef, personally.
Cranberry sauce or stuffing?
My friend Debbie's stuffing.
All right. I love it.
Yeah.
Stuffing. Yeah, stuffing. Yeah.
Okay.
But stuffing in a tray. I don't love
In a tray, not in.
I don't love stuffing in a
No,
bird
correct,
that much.
correct.
Okay.
Stuffing in a tray, 'cause
And
that's the American style,
correct.
isn't it?
Yeah. The one I have is, I'm already thinking about it for next. Yeah.
Okay. Orange and sage roasted potatoes or
Oh.
chestnut and smoked bacon sprouts.
The latter.
The second, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You said bacon and sprouts. So
Yeah,
done.
exactly. It's a
Yeah.
love language.
Smoked bacon.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got to be smoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Mince pie or Christmas pudding.
Mince pie, because I don't think I've had a proper Christmas pudding. We don't do. No,
sacrilege.
I know.
Dun, dun, dun.
We don't do, because you guys like soak.
Pastry chefs.
Yeah.
There's been an emergency.
You soak the fruits, but
Yeah.
you start soaking them like a month out. Or
October.
October, yeah.
In Trinidad, we do it a year out. We do
Yeah.
it
No
Boxing Day.
way.
We do it
Yeah,
Boxing
yeah.
Day, but it's
How
black.
cool
it's
is that?
black cake in
Right.
Trinidad. Yeah.
That sounds
That
great.
sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
Okay,
want.
so
the
mince pie.
Trinidadian,
And
the
then
TNT.
the challenge is on for the first ever Christmas pudding to go
Yeah.
to your house.
yes,
Okay,
please,
done.
and
Okay.
thank you.
I'll go Trinidad black cake.
All right.
Just on that topic. Yeah.
Okay, love it.
Okay.
Now,
Yes.
Courtney. throughout the entire year, as I know you've dined and gone and traveled to many places, what would you say has been your funniest either kitchen, restaurant, or home construction story?
Okay. I'm going to go funny, sad, not funny, haha.
Okay.
There's a restaurant I dined at this year. They continued to use, before we even sat down, they kept using the word pass around canapes about 5 times. And it just kept coming out. Like, we're coming to you with the pass around canape. You're going to get the pass around canape. So my husband and I already find this hilarious. When the protein came out, it was of a very petrol-filled smell. And it's so rare for me to ever send any food back. We each had a bite and we were like...
Was I with you?
No, you were not.
Oh.
And we kind of just then finally, sometimes you'll send stuff back here, nobody comes out. They were like, oh, can we do this again? We're like, we really just don't trust the process. The happy ending of this story is it was next door to another kitchen and chef we happened to love. And then that chef took excellent care of us because we were like, we're still hungry. We had petrol beef for dinner. And so anyway, yes.
No
way. I'm not going to name any names, but the chef who took care of us is a legend, and we're ever so thankful. He saved the night.
My goodness.
I think I might know who this is.
Okay. Yeah. Ask me offline. Yeah. DM me later.
Liam, for you?
Yeah.
So I think it's funny, surreal, as in speechless. And I think it was Gagan. I think it was the dinner at Gagan in Bangkok. And to set the scene for people, you're essentially inside of what could be an abattoir in Saw, like in one of the Saw series. And there's mesh and barbed wire on the ceiling. And there's what literally looks like an autopsy table in front of you where they're doing all the prep stations. And in the meantime, there's sort of music playing in the background and lights and things like that. And the dinner's in 2 halves. And the first half is... if Kanye West could cook, right, in a basement in Bangkok, that is essentially what the first half of the dinner is, where he's just spouting and saying rather derogatory things about Michelin and talking about bowel movements he's had, like in Paris and all this sort of stuff.
Pontificating.
Yeah, I would say it is an indulgence on behalf of the chef, and the personality of the chef is loud and clear. And I was having largely an out-of-body experience for the first half of this dinner, sort of asking myself, where am I? What is happening? And does the food sustain this? I think is probably another question to ask myself. But then quickly, I think the natural wine kicked in. And at some point in the second half, it went from being Rammstein to Britney Spears to Wings, right? Sort of Paul McCartney, to being Backstreet Boys. And I found my sort of inner, like, young millennial singing away to Britney Spears. And I didn't know I knew all the words, but I knew all the words, it turns out, in that sense. So it was just this super, super surreal experience.
It was super surreal. And I was also there this year. And I have to sort of, I always go back to this story that you have to be a chef of a certain caliber to basically pull something like this off. And what for me, it was the fact that you had 20 people. I think it was around 20 people.
Yeah, 10 and 10, yeah.
That you don't know. And one of the courses that comes out, because I have to say the story because it's just incredible, sort of. On one of the plates comes out a brain. And it's covered in blood. It's covered in blood, but it's basically a terrine of some sorts with coulis or whatever it is. But it's not that. That's okay. But it's, very realistic. And then he starts telling the story about sustainability. And you're looking, so I'm a chef and I get like he's trying to be funny and all this kind of stuff and creative. But I'm looking at the people who are not chefs and they're actually punters, like proper people who are, in jackets, they're sort of stood very straight. And they're
number 9 in the world.
And they're listening to him. And he's like, well, the only way that we could be sustainable is basically for my kitchen team to catch the street rats. Yeah. And then once we have those street rats, then we feed them grass. And this is really the true only way for us to, make sure that we are 100% sustainable. They get really, really big, so it's quite tricky to catch them. But once we kill them, and then we take out the brain, and this is what you have. And you're just like, and I'm just like...
These promiscuous lobotomized street rats.
Yes.
And this is the only way for us to become truly sustainable in Bangkok.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, and then the funny thing is you're tasting it, and I'm like, okay, taste as you would expect it to. Mm-hmm. But to be able to tell that story and to look people in the face, and it takes a lot. And he does this service twice a day.
Yeah.
You know, so as you were saying, Liam, not only do you have to do the large amounts of prep throughout the day, all of that kind of stuff, you then have to have the energy as a team, because they're all dancing, they're all singing and cooking and making sure. And because I'm also watching the chefs, they're gently putting the plates up. It's so well orchestrated. And I'm not taking away from his skill and dining experience, but to do it, it's just like, and then I was looking at the setup, and you've got the scaffolding with a specific set of lights, and so it's so different to what you'd expect.
Yes.
But then he's in Louis Vuitton also, and that is also just a
brand ambassador.
Classical fine dining, tablecloths, beautiful, nice. So it's just such a contrast.
Did you guys have a lot of audience participation?
Yes.
Okay.
Clapping.
But
cheering,
we had like team captains, and then we also had friend of the show, Peggy Lee.
Right.
Got up. We had one from each team to do a dish.
To cook, right?
Yeah. So that, I think that's something I would never expect in most fine dining. You would never see a guest in the kitchen, kind of inviting them into your space. Like, this is very
But again,
unique.
very brave.
Yeah.
So then, if we're talking about highlights, Courtney, throughout the entire year, and I'm going to really ask you to dig deep, what would you say have been your sort of personal dining highlights?
The Chef Massimo dinner is going to live up there for a very, very long time. I'm going to go back, actually, I think it was January or February. I was in Mexico with Chef Jorge from Quintanel, and we went to one of his cactus farmers. So we're out in the middle of nowhere, and the team is making up like the masa just like right there on the spot. It's a little cold, but we're just surrounded by all these cacti. And I think I love all our chefs here, but it's things when you kind of like close your eyes and you think, okay, like this is something that nobody would ever do or get to experience. I mean, yes, other people have done it, but it was just really kind of like you drive, because Mexico City is Mexico City. And then you're in this field surrounded by cactus and you just get to eat them. So those two, and I mean, this isn't a year of just exceptional. Like, I went to France, I've met some cows, I've had fresh cheese. So I was really, really lucky this year. Shout out to Pexo for always keeping it interesting. But it just is like, I think that's what's so interesting about what we do, especially in the space that we're in. I still haven't had food from your restaurant in Abu Dhabi. So that's like on my list. There's so many places that even though we do what we do and we go out all the time, there is a lot to discover. Just even this week, I'm going to go to Franzen, but then, my parents are coming to town. Where do I want to take them?
Nice.
So it's a long answer to just say, there are things here, things abroad. But then one last one, we have had a lot of construction at our house, long process. We had the barbecue. We had the barbecue open, and to order carne store, and I do know Dan and Fix, and it is like to cook on your own grill in your space. And like, how good does that beef taste? It tastes amazing. Why does it taste amazing? Not only because I know them, because it's our house and our space. Right. So I'm gonna go. Those are my three.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I'll stay in the theme and spirit of the show. I'll go food as memories. So I think I'm in a kind of new dad space in my life in that sense, and so there's probably some sentimentality. But I think it was January, February. I think it was in February time. I was stood in South Tyrol in Italy, in Alpin, which is one of Norbert's restaurants that he has, overlooking essentially the Italian Alps, I think the Austrian Alps and the Slovenian Alps across this view, and I was just so sort of breathtaken by the whole experience that I called my wife from the restaurant and just said, we're bringing you here, we're bringing our son here. Like that, this is like, I can't experience this alone. I cannot go to my grave in this family without the three of us experiencing this together. So I think that's not food related, but it is just kind of quietly, panoramically looking around a dining room and going, I just feel like I'm in, like God's ceiling or something in that sense. And then I went to Cairo this year as well for the Cairo Food Festival, which is normally around May time. And if anyone's thinking about doing a great regional food festival that we should celebrate. There's one in Cairo, there's one in Jordan as well, and we should look for that in our calendars in 2025. But on Mother's Day, by coincidence, my wife and I took our son to the Pyramids of Giza, and it was one of those things where my wife and I have always been very big into travel and traveling as much as we can, and we're more about experiencing things than we are buying gifts and all that kind of stuff. And so we've had a very difficult fertility journey and things like that, but to kind of do that first family flourish thing where it was his first trip, so his first stamp in his passport is an Egyptian visa, right? and I've got photos with him inside of the Pyramids of Giza on Mother's Day, right, while we were doing this festival. So that was I think that was very, very kind of that was very, very meaningful for us. And I think lastly, it's been in my kitchen also going through construction and renovation this year, and just trying to put, blueberries in my son's mouth or something, or seeing what he's like with cheese, and just kind of like watching him hold a cucumber and then eat it, and you can see the little gears in his mind going, being like, do I like this? Like,
I love that.
Like that sort of stuff. And I think that's been great for me, because I remember my mother doing it, I remember my grandfather doing it, and now I'm doing it. And so I think that's been huge.
Maybe from the womb, but we do know he's a fan of 21 grams.
Oh, he loves 21 grams.
Because at his first birthday, he kept reaching for the phyllo.
Yeah.
He was like, no, I can have a little more. I can have a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
He's his father's son.
Yeah, he's two parts phyllo pie at any given time.
Wow. Love it.
Yeah.
I think for me, the highlights, definitely, not from a culinary perspective, but definitely from the show, is that in May this year, the show is on Emirates Airlines, which basically means that whatever we discuss is now global, and it has a reach, and also all of the chefs that we and people like yourselves that we talk about and celebrate. We have a global voice, and that was the whole point at the beginning when I started the show 4 years ago. I just wanted to show off to the world what incredible gastronomy and talents and voices we have here. So that was a biggie.
Congrats.
Absolutely.
And then that again, and then of course the Michelin thing, that was like still mind blowing, to be honest. So I'm just thinking. So, do you know what's funny? Also, I have 3 stars tattooed on me.
Okay.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. So I have 3 stars tattooed on me here.
I'm glad you said where.
And I said, thank you. I'm not going to show you the rest here. But
it's a different podcast altogether.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, do I get a bib? Do I get? I don't know. I'm thinking because I have the knives, I have the toques and all that kind of stuff. But then I'm like, I don't know. But it was just really interesting.
Yeah, why not? Do it.
Really interesting. And again, I just think food is such a wonderful thing that brings all of us together. As you said, talking about the supper clubs, the different spaces, and I also love the respect that all of us have for each other. Whether you're a chef, restaurateur, front of house, media, I think everything that we're doing, and I think we just very, very early on, all of us believed in this region and what we're all about, and I think it's just amazing.
You go to these events and you turn around and it's such genuine respect and like, oh, I'm so glad to see you. How are you doing? I see you've done X, Y, and Z, and like get to congratulate you in person or whatever it is, that somebody's always doing something. And I go, especially to big events, like I'll go by myself. I don't, because I know I'm going to know somebody and I know I'm going to have a great time, and I know it's a great time to catch up and say, what are you doing next? Like, oh, I heard you're doing whatever. It is a very positive place.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So then the last one is, what advice would you give to anyone who is having either festive Christmas festivities, it could be New Year? How do you survive? I'm not talking about chefs, because we all know that some of them will be cooking away and all that kind of stuff. And you're all legends, by the way. But specifically, how do you survive the festivities over the next few weeks, Courtney? And I'm talking about specifically sort of the Christmas period, and then bang into New Year's.
You delegate, and because we live in a fantastic town where food is available at all times. So, for example, I'm having, this is before Thanksgiving, the wonderful team at Weston, they do a fantastic job. They have a cooker. They can get turkeys. They can do all of it. I don't have to worry about that. So it can be a very expensive endeavor. And that, I think there's like, not to bring it down, it's like financial stress of making food,
right.
stress of whatever. I'm here to say, like, just let somebody else do it. It is so much cheaper, because brunch on Christmas Day or Boxing Day or whatever day, it is a lot of money. You're going to do so much better. Spend that extra money on the bottle of bubbles.
Right.
Like, just go and say, who's your favorite? Who do I want to support? Who has been good? So that could be Reform. That could be 21 grams for catering.
Right,
That could
right,
be
right,
anybody,
right.
right?
Yes, yes.
And just go and say, do you know what? The money I could have spent, because like if you're a family of 4, we're talking over 2,000 dirhams for a brunch at this point. Who do I want to support? And then you just go ahead and make that. So don't feel any guilt whatsoever. Make your special dishes. So we have our dishes that we will make for Thanksgiving and Christmas Day that are important to us. The biggies, I'm not risking a turkey or anything else, but I know what I can make.
Or your mental health.
Correct.
Time.
and again, shout out to those in the F&B industry, because you are doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, right.
It is a lot, and we take. I don't take it for granted, because you're going to be away from your home, working long hours with people who don't respect you some of the time. So thank you. Shout out to everyone in the F&B industry.
Yeah, I completely agree with Courtney, but I put it in a way where I'd say, look, what's the purpose of the time of the year for you? It's probably downtime, so less is more in that sense. It's probably spending time with the people that, you don't get to spend that much quality time together. So don't put 8 hours in the kitchen in that sense. And if it's that you have visitors in town and you want to take them to this lovely property, and yes, you'll spend a lot of money on a champagne brunch and that kind of stuff, but that's what you want out of it, go for you. But what I will do this year, and it's what we did last year, is that, so I really love Kunwal Safdar, and she runs Moorish by Kay, and that's her supper club and her kind of brand. She does a Christmas kind of turkey package box type thing, which you tell her what you want, it's delivered to your house at the time you want, on the day you want, and I just unpack that, and we have a dinner at my house. Normally, we didn't do it last year because we had like a 4-week-old child with us. But what we do is we tend to put Christmas dinner out on the table, and we call it For Those Left Behind. And I basically just text everyone around and say, you didn't go home this year, so food's on the table from 10. There's a stack of plates. There's a microwave in the kitchen. Just turn up. You come for half an hour? Cool. It was lovely to see you. You come for 8 hours? Cool. Really glad you came and spent that amount of time. But that's the idea. It's about seeing people. And if they pass through the door, great. But just make it as easy as you can. We're really, to your point, lucky to live in a country which kind of spoiled for choice and quality. So take advantage of it. And I think the people who invest the money and time in order to do that, reward them as well too.
100%.
And don't bring your dog to Liam's, because one year my poppy took the turkey leg and just kind of turned up like, look at me, look what I found. She doesn't eat off the table, only when it's, I guess the turkey's really good. She does, it's her favorite
on purpose,
protein.
Liam, right? On purpose.
Exactly.
So for those people who may not know, can you tell me where they can find you on socials, please?
Yes. You can find me on Instagram. It's probably the easiest, _Courtney Brandt _ All my links are dropped in there. I would especially invite you. I have a free weekly newsletter. It is everything. It's meant to be Saturday morning, lie in bed, read what I've been doing, where you should go, and also just a whole bunch of randomness. Yeah.
Liam?
So it's Liam Collens with an E, not an I, which is probably worth mentioning. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, also now on Blue Sky. I've set that up earlier this week. And also subscribe to me on Substack, because I'm trying to catch up with Courtney.
She's only got apparently 650 million.
Exactly. Every other person on the planet is a subscriber.
Well, look, both of you, I really want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be here, for being on the show, giving us so much inspiration over the past years, not years. Very much looking forward to seeing what 2025 has in store. But really, thank you very much for your time. You have been phenomenal, the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. And congrats to you too. You've also had a really great 2024.
Yes.
Can't wait to see what you're doing next year.
New seasons, new chefs, new people to talk to.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, gang, it has been an incredible review of 2024 and what's coming up in 2025. A special shout out to everyone in hospitality who is working over the season. We know how hard you work, and we really thank you for everything that you do. If you're also a customer and going to a brunch or a restaurant, make sure you say hi, make sure you say thank you, because it's really important. And above all, I just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and please do not forget, the most important thing is just to say how much you love everyone, especially your family at this time. Most importantly, see you next year. Food is memories.